Hello, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Welcome to the Starseed Ministry. It is November 14th, 2022. Thank you for being here. Welcome back, everyone. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for stopping by, checking out the Starseed Ministry, our live broadcast here on YouTube every Monday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time. And wow. What else can I say? Wow. So I hope everyone is doing well. I hope you had a good weekend, if in fact it is your weekend. For those of you who, are not following the standard calendar in terms of when your time off or your downtime is, whatever you were doing over the last couple of days, I hope you are feeling some refreshment, some balance at this point. It was a pretty intense weekend, and I feel like I say that every week, but I mean, this is just the nature of the times that we are in. So we're going to talk, of course, a little bit of astrology today, share with you this kite that is building exact today with Lilith and Pluto as the spine. I have a reading that I'm going to share with you today, and I'm going to offer some, maybe some challenging perspectives, just some things to ponder, just some things that might increase your cognitive dissonance just a little bit, but also to just maybe consider that cognitive dissonance is something worth leaning into, something to embrace, something to consider as a catalyzing point, if you will, in terms of our own journey. Okay, so I hope everyone's doing well. I'm going to check in with the stream and the chat here, make sure that everything is going well. It looks like it's doing okay. It says excellent condition, but of course during the stream, if you are on the live chat and it feels like or seems like or sounds like or looks like things are not going well, just let me know when I pop in over to the chat. So it is the 14th. This is the Starseed Ministry. And like I said, I'm going to offer some generalized perspectives here. Now, the weekend was very intense. Let's kind of go back in the way back, not even that far back machine. Let's just kind of take a couple steps backwards here and go over some of the astrology of the weekend, maybe look into a little deeper of what you were experiencing, maybe the people around you. Now on Telegram, and when I say Telegram, I mean the private Telegram chat group for monthly subscribers. There was a pretty invested conversation over the weekend because people are reporting that it's certainly surrounding them, and of course in their own experience as well. People are very frustrated. They are angry. They are popping off in their own ways. I certainly was not immune to it in my own way. And there's going to be, I think, a build up of this energy leading up to the new moon in Sagittarius, which is when Jupiter, the ruling planet of Sagittarius, is going to station direct in another sign of its rulership, which is Pisces. So there is this build up that appears to be leading us to a moment of catalyzation, a moment of transformation, a moment of release. And certainly we have exited the eclipse window, but we're still in the lunar cycle that was characterized by the eclipses, right? We had a solar eclipse, and then we had our full moon lunar eclipse on the 8th of November. And we're still in this window, right? We've exited the eclipse portal, so to speak, but we're still in the lunar cycle that was characterized by these eclipses. So there's still so much that is very deeply embedded in all of us that was initiated with this eclipse. And since we are talking about Scorpio and Taurus, we are talking about the axis of resource, the axis of value, and the axis of power, either inherent value and power or created communal power, shared power, something that is generated based on our investment. And of course, we have the south node of the moon, K2, the descending node, being the tail of the dragon, so to speak, the energy that is asking to be released and needs to be released from from our journey at a soul level, in order to really embrace the transformation. And of course, Scorpio is such an intense sign. We have so much Scorpio energy right now with not only our sun right now, but Venus. We have Mercury in Scorpio. Of course, the South Node is in Scorpio. And there's just so much intensity with the personal planets. And when I say personal planets, I mean the planets that represent the individual relationship to our life, to the cosmos, to our own journey. And so it can be very hard, I think, especially with Venus in Scorpio. She is at her detriment here. She is not at her best in Scorpio. It can be very difficult to pull our own personalized, individualized experiences out of the abyss and the depth and the shadow, which Scorpio represents, okay? So there is this incredible kite that is forming today with, like I said, Pluto and Lilith in an exact opposition, Lilith being the lunar apogee, that space within in which the divine spark is meant to inhabit, the flame of our spiritual transformation, but there needs to be a space there. And oftentimes with Lilith in the chart, we will find ourselves either compensating for what feels like an emptiness or a disempowerment or a frustration, perhaps. And anger, perhaps, and finding ways to, not even finding ways. This energy and this experience often will be heard, it will be experienced, it will find its expression, and without a very, I would say, balanced approach, and certainly just coming at it from the perspective of the witness of our own experience, we can be taken over by this energy. We can find ourselves attempting to fill that void when it's not meant to be filled, right? It's meant to be filled only by the flame of our divine transformation, by the spark of divinity. But in the meantime, as humans, we'll find ourselves attempting to empower or keep ourselves from feeling cut off by either overdoing it or going to the opposite side of things. And so this tension with Pluto and Lilith is really the spine of this really incredible kite that we're going to look at today in the astrology that has Neptune, it has the Sun, it has Venus, and it has Jupiter, all part of this kite as well. It's all water, and a little bit of earth, right? The only earth is the top of the kite, which is is Pluto in Capricorn, and the rest is all this water trine with Lilith and Neptune, Jupiter, and the Sun. So the Sun is in a trine to Neptune today. This is a very beautiful and poetic in many ways transit. It really allows our individual spiritual essence, what we identify as our own creative potential and expression, to find a connection to something well beyond our own individual self, something that is spiritualized, something that is transcendental and cosmic, okay? And Venus and Jupiter will also be in an exact trine coming into tomorrow as well, which is another very favorable transit and really lends itself to some beautiful, imaginative energy when it comes to relationships, when it comes to bounty, right? An expansion of resources. But keep in mind here that Lilith is the bottom of this kite. And again, if we find especially in Cancer, if we find ourselves feeling vulnerable, feeling like we need to protect what is ours, if we are feeling emotionally and intuitively, internally not protected, if we are feeling in any way that our safety is compromised and we are not aware of that, Lilith will do whatever it takes to have us feel that sense of consolidation of power. And this is going to be experienced so differently for so many people, but it's really important that we give voice and just give ourselves a moment to identify these transits today, because it could very easily lead us into a false sense of security. And what we may find is that as we are attempting to, feather the nest, we're actually really building another version of our own prison, and the ability to be the silent witness to ourselves, our feelings, to use them as guideposts is really, really important. So part of this is leaning into our cognitive dissonance. Now, the moon in Gemini over the weekend met with Mars. If Mars in Gemini in its retrograde is bringing this cognitive dissonance really close to us, and we want to act on it so badly. And there is a way to act on it. There is a way to put that initiative, outward momentum of Mars into this cognitive dissonance, which is to not turn away from it, to not feel the need to turn off anything that triggers this sense of like, wait a minute, this is challenging what I not only thought I knew, but what I've been acting on. That can be really unsettling. And I think that what we may be finding in ourselves and other people in our lives, the people surrounding us, without any awareness to this, they're really giving in to the frustration and the anger, and without that awareness of what Lilith represents, finding themselves acting out in ways that ultimately are self-destructive and self-sabotaging. And so while we may think that we are in fact building our new nest, like I said, we may be reinforcing the next level of our own imprisonment. And it's coming from a sense of lack, right? The sense that we don't think that we have enough, and a sense of really wanting to just, no matter what, right, give over to our feelings without any rationality whatsoever. So when we get into the reading in particular, the imagery around this will help paint a picture that maybe we can actually see, as opposed to being kind of in this, very broad spectrum Neptunian type of space. Now, there is nothing wrong with being here. And in fact, it's in our soul and that soul work where we really understand our place within all of this, okay? But let me offer some suggestions here. Number one, the cognitive dissonance. We've already talked about that. It's really coming to the surface, and especially because those quincunxes between Mars and all of the Scorpio energy, Venus and Mercury, and soon to be, very soon to be the Sun and Mars as well. And a quincunx is a 150-degree angle in the chart. It is the moment where that cognitive dissonance, where those things that don't seem to fit together, this is where we catalyze into our transformation. This is where we don't squeeze them together as much as we do something that seems beyond what should happen, which is we square the circle. Now, I'm going to offer a suggestion here. And again, there's some more cognitive dissonance. And this is everything that I talk about comes from my own personal experience going through this. I don't ever feel comfortable really speaking to anything that I myself haven't gone through and have experienced firsthand and had my own journey with. It doesn't mean that I'm not continuing just like the rest of us. But, there's this idea that we are somehow exiting the matrix when we wake up, right? So this is just an idea, just a consideration here. What if the whole point is not to exit the matrix? What if exiting the matrix is only accessible by one means, which is to leave this earthly vessel, right? To leave our materiality fully and completely. Now, there are lots of different ways that we can do this. We do this in our dream state. We do this through all kinds of imaginative types of astral journey, creativity, right? This is about the poetry of the soul. This is very Piscean, right? These are these Pisces realms that we dive into and we swim around in when we are in these states. Perhaps it's not about exiting the matrix. Perhaps that has been a means to steer us away from the real work here. The real transmutation, the real transformation is to wake up in the matrix, right? Now consider that the matrix is reflecting everything back to us, right? And is also evolving. It's also changing. It is also growing in response to our input to it. Now, this can be very easily understood through the algorithm of social media platforms. For instance, right? What you watch, what you search for online, right? The conversations you're having on your DMs that you think are private, right? It's all data points that are going into this system, right? And then the system learns and it adapts based on the input you're giving it, just like we do in our everyday lives. But just imagine that it's not really about exiting the matrix, and that's kind of a misrepresentation. It's about waking up inside the matrix. It's about being awake in the matrix, and then the matrix is reflecting back to us our awakened essence, our awakened soul. Our higher self is the one driving the matrix, right? And at that point, there is a sense of empowerment that can never really be taken away, right? At that point, the matrix is not controlling us anymore. It is really a tool for our own experience in this particular realm of activity. And I would argue, my own personal opinion about this is that this is the mission of the Starseed. It's not to wake up out of the matrix, and I just don't actually think, now that I've gone through my own journey thus far, I don't think that's actually what we're here to do, and I don't think it's really possible. I think the only way that you exit this simulation and wake up and get fully debriefed is when you exit permanently out of this particular, vessel, right? With your unique characteristics, your DNA, all of your life experiences are part of this. And it's really not about that. So I'm curious what you guys think, is this challenging you? Is this something that you're like, whoa, that actually resonates? I never thought about it like that before, but that makes so much more sense. Now, if we take ourselves into this perspective, right, let's just suspend our judgment for a minute and lean into maybe some of that cognitive dissonance about everything I've learned about the spiritual journey so far has taught me, because I am relying on what is reflected back to me outside of me to tell me what's going on, has told me that when I wake up, I'm out of the matrix, okay? Let's just suspend that for 2 seconds and think about it from a different perspective here. If the matrix or the simulation, whatever you want to call it, if in fact it is responding to us, if in fact it is adjusting and evolving and growing and mirroring back what is going on for us, doesn't it make sense that really the nature of your soul, right? What's really going on down there in the subconscious, which is really what is directing the matrix. It's not your conscious thoughts. It's what's happening down under, right? In those scorpionic realms, in the subconscious, in the dream state, for instance. Wouldn't it stand to reason, perhaps, that you are going to get reflections back to you of the nature of your own soul, your subconscious, what's going on at those levels that is, more connected to who you actually are. So let's take that a step further. Does that mean that when you start getting synchronicities, when you start getting your number synchronicities, when you start receiving information from all manner of places, right? Is that an indication that you are on the right track? Or is it an indication or just a reflection of the current state of your soul and your subconscious? It's just something to consider, right? And maybe you've already thought about this. Maybe you are at this level already and you're like, yep, whatever is reflected back to me is really just the mirror of my own soul. And perhaps, maybe, just maybe, if we are able to take that witness perspective truly, we'll be able to to really see the quality and what is truly going on at that level by way of what is actually being reflected back to us, as opposed to looking for confirmation of what's going on in our spiritual nature, in our subconscious, in our soul, our multidimensional selves. Looking for the confirmation outside of us is always going to confirm it, okay? And so it puts a whole new perspective on all of these tools, all of these means of reinforcing to ourselves that we are, quote, on the right track. And I say this because I personally have been through this bardo, right? I've been in this, and you know, we're getting into kind of like eighth sphere type of conversation right now. I've been in this area where that is exactly what was happening, and it was leading me down a very false path. Okay. And it was when it was when I realized that it was reflecting back to me a quality that wasn't really my own, or was a lesser state of my own spiritual evolution. And the rug had to be pulled out from under me completely. Okay. So maybe this may be where you're at. This may be where lots of other people are surrounding you. So, and the one thing I want to also bring up before we get into the reading, I'll check in with the chat and see how you guys are doing, and answer any questions, and really respond to the current moment here, is that another conversation that came up in our private Telegram group was about the 5 stages of grief, right? That people may be in that anger stage, right? And so the 5 stages of grief is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. Now, I would love to know if anybody else that you know of has come to the conclusion that I'm about to offer as a perspective, right? And this is not something I've read. This is not something that I have gotten from anyone else. This is something that truly just came to me as a result of that conversation and my own work. I think the 5 stages of grief is incomplete, right? Because acceptance is the bottom of the bell curve, right? I think there's another stage, which is transmutation. It's transformation. And of course, my brain is going, well, why would there only be 5 stages, right? If it's incomplete, why are we only psychologically being offered 5 stages? Well, you can probably imagine why that is, right? I mean, it's pretty easy to keep you in a feedback loop when you end at acceptance. Not to say that you can't find peace and you can't find peace of mind, contentment, you can't find joy, that you can't find a sense of balance and peace of mind in the grieving process, right? The acceptance. But there's something else that comes after this. And it's the most important part of the Pluto journey, which is the alchemy, right? And so that's just something that came out today, and I wanted to share that with you because it's going to be something that I think is going to be brought into our awareness at a much larger level moving forward. Here is the acceptance piece. Is that really the end of the 5 stages of grief? Do we just go back into the feedback loop of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and just keep going over and over? Or do we actually transform as a result? Why is that not part of the conversation? I don't know. Well, I mean, I have some ideas, but these are just some places for you to, to take and go in whatever direction feels right to you. So I'm going to check in with the stream here and see what's going on. VZ says, I totally agree. This is about waking up in the matrix, not out of the matrix. I love how you phrase this. I was thinking about this last night and this morning. Yes. And you know what? Our conversation actually really inspired this perspective. So I appreciate you so much because this is because we, our work together, VZ, has really inspired this. And I appreciate the fact that you are just right there with me about it. So thank you for commenting, and thank you for being so open and really willing to also face your own cognitive dissonance, just like me, right? Just like all of us right now. It's not easy. It really isn't. And it can be so just absolutely It can be very difficult to go to that place. It is a place that is very hard. It's very difficult to come back from when you realize, like, no matter how many times you ping pong between one and the other, it's not actually going to lead you home, right? And I am planning to do more content about the upcoming ingress of Saturn into Pisces and Pluto into Aquarius, because it's going to be a big conversation coming up for spring of 2023. But I will tell you what, just to give you a little preview, Saturn in Pisces is not an easy transit to come out of one's depression, right? This is where people really start to give up, okay? Because it is like a weight around your neck, and it's not even sinking into the abyss so much as it's very difficult to allow yourself to return back to the source of all in your experience. And I have some very specific reads about this that I'm going to save for that report and for that forecast. But just know that during the winter into the spring, while Saturn is still in Aquarius, right, as the water bearer, it's really, I think, very important that we understand, because if you are expecting or you identify your awakening as exiting the matrix, this is going to be especially Pluto in Aquarius as well. I mean, it's one thing for Pluto to completely destroy the institutions, the materium itself. It's going to be a whole new world when Pluto is in the realm of our spiritualized, idealized sense of civilization, because that is, we can wrap our minds around being able to bounce back from, the institutions falling apart. That's something that we are expecting, and something that we have been preparing for. And in fact, Saturn and Pluto in that conjunction in 2020 was like, the christening of that situation, right? This is coming to an end. This is the destruction of the old guard. But what comes in its place is something that we have to be very mindful of. And if we expect that we're exiting out of the matrix, I assure you that that is going to be challenged to a degree that is going to shock probably most of us, right? And it's not about doom and gloom. It's about finding that witness perspective so that we can be awake within this, and then we can allow the biosphere, right? The hologram, the matrix itself, which is just a word to represent the building blocks all together into the law of nature. How we are able to, how it responds to us. Right? We don't want to exit out of it. That's, and some people do, and they will, and they have been, and they will continue to do so. And I would really encourage you to challenge yourself, if this is creating some cognitive dissonance for you, to lean into it. Use that friction as your catalyzing power, because we're going to come into Sag, Venus, Mercury. They're going to be conjunct in Sagittarius. The sun's going to come into Sagittarius. Jupiter is going to station direct on the day of our Sagittarius new moon, okay? Thanksgiving here in the U.S. It's going to be this really bountiful, catalyzing effect that's happening. And we want to make sure, I would say, that it is our own. It is us from a deep soul level that is catalyzing, and not us being pulled into the cauldron of someone else's alchemy. And if there's been plans in place for a very, very long time, and very long time, and to consider that it's just going to fall apart is, I think, kind of naive. So we have the capacity to wake up within this matrix and to have it respond to us truly, okay? But that takes a certain amount of willingness to maybe allow your perspective to deepen, okay? And like I said, I've been through this, and I'm sure I'll be through it again, just like everybody else, right? Every layer that gets pulled back is another layer of the onion that is drawing all of our tears out, okay? And to be easy on yourself, my gosh, be easy on the people around you that aren't even remotely here, right? They're gonna come at it from a they're gonna come at it. They're in their anger phase, right? Of their 5 stages of grief, okay? And we'll go through it over and over and over again. And our job as starseeds is to wake up in the matrix. That is what we're here to do. And if you feel like your job is to exit it, that's what you're going to get, right? You are going to get confirmation from this matrix that is what you are meant to do. And that's what will happen. So again, it's not about doom and gloom. It's about being the witness from your soul, right? From the soul level, rather than getting caught in some sort of feedback loop that shunts you into a false sphere of spirituality. And that 8th sphere conversation is so deep and it's so elusive that I don't think I could possibly cover it here in this. So anyway, I'm going to check in here with people again. Sounds accurate, says Phoenix Rules. I love your handle, by the way, about the stages of grief. I've definitely surpassed that in the last 2 years after finally coming to terms with losing my boy over 12 years ago. Wow, that is some next level shit. I'm not gonna lie. I cannot relate to that at all. And thank you for sharing that. That is some really intense work right there. And we've all had our losses, and it's the people that have lost at that level, I feel like, that have so much to teach and to offer. And yeah, about transmutation. Big time. And VZ says, once you wake up in the matrix, you can start affecting the matrix. You can change the matrix once you're awake to it. Very much so. And regarding the stages of grief, I find it interesting that 5 doubled as 10, the binary system, where 6 is more magical and flip to a 9 is wisdom. 100%. Like, that's where I was going, but I wanted to see if anybody else was gonna, I know that it's Sarah P. I just wanted to acknowledge that I think your handle is really awesome. I know who you are. But yes, I'm a big proponent of the base 10 system being the trap, right? The feedback loop, the false matrix, and 6 to 9 to 12 being much more of our transmutational capacity. So bravo to you guys in picking up on what I'm putting down here. So and I have, my training is in psychology. I have social science research degrees. I've had published research, you know what I mean? Like, I've had a lot of experience as well putting it into practice in the field. And for all of the benefit, and, this is no judgment on anybody else who is a practicing clinician at all, is that there is something very interesting about the fact that it's specifically the 5 stages of grief, right? That I think is really important to consider. And, Phoenix Rules has some pretty interesting, powerful, and, one of the most difficult things you could ever go through, I think, in your life, especially someone who's never gone through something like that, at least in this lifetime, is to lose your child, right? And the acceptance is one thing, but how is that going to alchemize your experience? How are you going to transform? Where is that transmutation in that experience? So anyway, that's what I have for my monologue this morning, my friends. So let's get into the reading, because this imagery, at first I was really confused because, who woke up and, sleep at this point? Who's having it? I don't know. But I did. It was very kinetic. Now the moon is in Leo, so that is opposite Aquarius. For me as an Aquarius person, I definitely was feeling that tension and pull, especially coming out of my dream state. So I think that's pretty interesting. So I'm curious if people are having sleep issues. I wouldn't be surprised. Also, too, there have been a lot of big earthquakes in the last couple of days. If you've been tracking it, a lot. I mean, like 8 earthquakes even in the last couple of days that have been a magnitude 6 and above, and it's all on the Asia side of the Ring of Fire on that fault line. It has been pretty significant. So there's also this corresponding jostling and seismic activity of readjustment. Not too much coming out of the Schumann resonance these days. There was one big amplification over the weekend up to between 40 and 50, but other than that, it's pretty mellow for the most part. The solar activity, still pretty mellow. There was like this one-off of a M5 flare sometime last week, but for the most part, it hasn't been flaring very much at all, actually. And this is something I really want you to pay attention to as well if you're following this. And, in the Catalyst Classroom, our most recent topic has been the sun and our suns. And so I just put that content up for the subscribers, the tier 2 subscribers. That was put up and sent out on Friday, and we talked about all manner of esoterica, the binary companion theory, all of that stuff. So if that interests you, that's something that you can find through catalystenergies.net. That's in the description box below, and how to sign up for the Catalyst Classroom. Anyway, we also went over how to read the data of solar weather, and I think it's important to really understand what's happening, because you'll see that there'll be these flares, right, that are, bigger than they've been, but they're not anything that is going to, they're not like X class 1000 or anything. They're not like a Carrington event, but you'll see all the fear porn about it. Oh, there was this huge solar flare, and it's just like, it really wasn't. It's important that you understand the data for yourself. Again, this goes back to, where is your information coming from? Are you relying on someone else to tell you what's happening? Or have you learned how to read and interpret the data and the information, put it through your own system, and see what reflects back to you? Because that's going to be a much more useful tool moving into the future, as who knows what's getting set up and staged coming into 2023, because it's definitely, they're already putting it out there. You can see the amplification of certain narratives in certain areas that is getting pumped up, not the least of which is the UFO thing. So knowing how to read this data, knowing what it feels like in your body, understanding it so that you're not relying on someone else going, whoa, when it's really not, whoa, really important. But there were a lot of big earthquakes. So, but the solar weather, it's been pretty mellow for the most part. Now we are going to get a coronal hole, and that is going to bring us some enhanced solar wind coming into the end of the week, okay? So you're going to start probably feeling and seeing that coming into it's midweek, I would say, and then starting to amplify. So just being aware of that. All right, so I'm going to bring over the reading now, my friends. Here we go. So, we have our 9 of Discs reversed, Venus in Virgo. We have the Prince of Cups also reversed. So there is this earth-water element that is kind of here on our horizontal axis. And then there's lots of fire elsewhere. And it's not going to seem like fire because the imagery has got a lot of water. But the forces, right? We have the 2 of Forces, the 3 of Forces, the 6 of Forces reversed. These are all energies of action, right? The forces, it's the Wands energy, but in the Akashic Tarot, okay? And then we have Venus in the fire signs, the Princess of Wands, our Carmen, as it were, right? All this animus is, and I always get them confused, anima and animus, right? But it's definitely on the menu here. So we have our moon in Leo right now, so we can kind of already feel internally in our own emotional landscape that combust energy of our heart space, of our joy, our enthusiasm. It can get more than that, though, right? It can be just conceit and a sense of just burning down the object of our desire. But what else do we have? Venus is going to come into Sagittarius within this week, okay? She is in the very last degrees of Scorpio right now. So when we go over the astrology, we'll look more at that. But just so you know, this energy of our feels, right? And our magnetism, our senses, our sense of value, our sense of worth, the things that matter to us, and the aspects of the material world that give us a sense of security and comfort and beauty and harmony, right? All of these things that Venus represents coming into the fire signs, it is powerful, it is passionate, it is enthusiastic, but there's always a downside with the princess because she's got a little bit of immaturity here and and almost childlike in some ways. And it is important that we are not letting our sense of lack and this sense of not well, when we get into the Prince of Cups, this will make more sense. Now for me personally, I was already feeling this Princess of Wands energy today, okay, and not in so much of the aggravated, frustrated kind of like way over the weekend. I was definitely feeling it in my own way and certainly feeling it from outside of me, but also in just this really enthusiastic way. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of fire that is starting to, boil the waters within. So again, it really depends on how you are approaching all of this. And what we're going to find here is the need to be the silent observer, right? To really get into the ability to witness all of the reverberations, all of the ripples, all of our own cognitive dissonance in a way that is low to the ground. And then you have the seagull, which is about deep emotional healing, right? It's about dipping into our unconscious, but not indulging all of that. Now, the Prince of Cups is reversed, and so we could find ourselves indulging that as a means to figure something out. Maybe we're diving in deeper to one side or the other with Mars and Gemini in a way that is actually not helping us, but is reinforcing one bias or the other. So, and then people are upset, people are frustrated, people are disillusioned, right? And I would offer the perspective that maybe that's always been kind of the plan, right? That eliciting that response from people has been manufactured in some way. And again, when you bring this weasel into the mix in terms of getting low, being the observer, really witnessing how you are responding to the stimuli around you, it gives you so much information, okay? And then you adjust, and then the biosphere adjusts to you rather than you taking your cue from the matrix itself and taking that as confirmation, because that's what the confirmation bias really is. So, but if you think about it from not just a digital perspective, which is very, very real, and we all can probably wrap our heads around that, but even more than that, right? And this is where taking concerted action on your own behalf is one of the missing ingredients to the law of attraction. Again, very much part of the, intentionally left out. Okay. So anyway, let's get into the specifics here. All right. So we have our 9 of discs. There's our 9. That's pretty awesome. Venus in Virgo, right? Gain. This is where we can experience a level of satisfaction, but of course it's reversed. So coming into this present moment, which is all we ever have, there may be a feeling of insecurity, regardless of our blessings, right? We have greed for more. We want more. We're discontent. We are maybe apathetic. That is also a inversion of this energy. You're hyper materialistic in our thinking, right? There's that Ahriman energy. It's like all materialism. If it's not exactly what I want in this, if I'm not feeling the material gain in a way that satisfies my ego, then you start getting greedy for more. You do feel insecure. And I get the sense, and I think many of us can agree with this, that on the whole, especially after the eclipse and the election on the eclipse, that there is kind of this sense here. Now, some people, their energy is dissipating. It is just leaking everywhere, and their apathy is becoming more pronounced, I guess you could say. So this is the energy coming into the moment. Now, here's our Prince of Cups, is the air of the water. So when you look at this imagery, you see that this is an individual that's got the bird on the helmet. He's got the bucket. There is the serpent within. And the bird as well is the one really driving the energy here. And it's going in, right? It's a bird that's going in. Much like the seagull, when we get to that imagery, is a bird that does dive into the water in order to get its sustenance, right? It lives close to the water. It doesn't live in the water, but it lives close to the water and is able to go into the water to get its needs met, to go in, to dip in, okay? So there is this crossover here as well. Now, in reversal, what we're looking at is, this in itself is a combination of our spirit and our soul, right? So our soul is the place where we connect to spirit, okay? The divine flame. And it is the air of water. You're looking at the transition from Libra to Scorpio, which is something we've already gone through, all right? So there's love and there's artistic intention, right? This is where poetry comes from, right? Is this, think about Mercury in the water signs, which it's where it's at right now, Mercury in Scorpio. In fact, Mercury is going to be in a sextile, that 60-degree angle, with Pluto today, okay? So there's compassion, there's warmth, there's artistic intention, and love with the Prince of Cups. There is this sense of intentionally diving into the space of our own imagination, our own compassion, and love in order to really hold that energy of transmutation, which I feel is, the serpent really represents, that kundalini that is at the base of our spine, in our sacral chakra. You got to go in to know the quality of it, and to, in some ways, be able to tap into the poetry of our soul, right? So in reversal, it's now think about Venus and Virgo reversed as well, right? The 9 of discs reversed, meeting this moment. It's reckless and selfish, right? Always striving just to improve one's own goals without any sense of what's going on the bigger picture, or the more transcendental perspective, right? Carelessly sacrificing relations in order to perfect your own art, right? I mean, there's been a lot of that just in general. Shifty in dealings, right? Prince of Cups reversed. There is some shiftiness here that is at the heart of this matter. And in fact, it is the heart that gets in the way of thinking rationally at all. And it's very immature and it's infatuated, okay? There's a lot of immaturity, and there's a lot of recklessness, and there's a lot of shiftiness in just this entire horizontal axis here, okay? So that's something to consider with all of this. Now, this is the heart of the matter. And this doesn't mean that you yourself are shifty. It doesn't mean that you yourself are reckless and infatuated and immature. But when we come from a place where we don't feel like our needs are being met, that we haven't gained what we've actually wanted to gain, even though we are having to gain what we have put into our works and labors, right? Only what we put in is what we are able to get out of it. What matures is based on what we have been putting into the process of reaping what you sow, right? And so the Scorpio aspect is the nature of the power that is generated based on all of that. Now, coming into this moment where we're already kind of feeling maybe there's an immaturity, maybe there is being kind of like unrealistic about what's happening. You can see how this leading up to this Princess of Wands just in general can just be like, well, fuck it, right? Just burn it all down, right? I don't even want to consider how this impacts anyone else, okay? Now, what's happening at the root of things? Well, here's our little bird's nest, the three of forces. It's so cute. Look, the little butterfly, right? The symbol of transmutation and metamorphosis is there. The sun is shining. You have the mama bird feeding the babies, right? There's this whole maternal Cancerian energy. There's balance with the three of forces. And it's upright. So there's a force of creativity and expansion here at our root and sacral area. And our lower chakras do represent our experience here in the material world, in the third dimension matrix, as it were. This is about focusing on starting new things, right? We know that it's the seed is beyond planted, and now it's about creating the space in order to expand and allow for this creativity at this level to come in. So there is an effort that needs to be involved to build this, and perhaps it's a widening of network of our spiritual contacts, a widening network of community. Maybe we're actually preparing for children coming into our life, our family expanding, or a widening of experience in our career, in our works and labors, whatever it is. Whatever it is, it's a force of creativity and expansion that it's at the root here, okay? And again, forces are fire. So we had this very feminine energy here of this Nine of Discs coming in, and the Prince of Cups. Now we have this rationality with this Mercury and Scorpio energy, but there's something not aligned correctly. There's an inversion here. This could also mean that we are just really deeply going into this space of poetry, of art, of really getting into the depth of our own unconscious motivations, perhaps. But the inversion coming from the Nine of Discs being reversed is pretty unsettling, and is for me, it was a red flag of like, we really need to pay attention what we are building for here, okay? And because it is building, we are creating a space for new creativity expansion to come in. There's no doubt at this point that that's what's happening. Now, the attention, Six of Forces, the waterfall being reversed. I mean, this is disempowerment, really feeling a significant loss of power, being emotionally reactive. That sounds familiar. Feel like your life is turned upside down, unintentionally giving your power away to something outside of you, following another agenda in spite of your own intuition. I can't tell you how many times I've done this in my life. So many times. And every single time you have your hindsight and you're like, wow, I ignored all of those red flags that were coming from me because I couldn't accept, my ego couldn't accept that I'd given my power away to this situation. It's okay, right? It's embarrassing sometimes. You feel foolish. You do, and especially if you are really, someone who people rely on, people really look to and trust. This is why being transparent about your own journey is like primary to my work with Catalyst Energies and these Starseed Ministries, because I never want to mislead people into thinking that I have all of these answers, because I don't, right? I'm here with you, but I've had my journey down this pathway enough times to know now what it feels like. And so when you feel this way, it's easy to give up. It's easy to go into depression. You can live according to the dictates of another, because it is so much more comfortable than having to face the cognitive dissonance of realizing maybe that you have given your power away. And when you understand your true value, you'll know what you deserve, and you'll know that you do deserve to carve out your own destiny, right? And value is a Taurus thing. It is a Venusian thing. Venus is all about our inherent value, pulling towards us, attracting to us that which is aligned with our own value. But we have to understand our true value. And many, if not most of us, don't really understand it, which is why we outsource constantly to people outside of us. And this is why influence operations work, right? It doesn't take much to get people to pulled into your net when they don't understand their true value, because this is difficult work, right? It's not as easy as just like making a couple declarations and following the right people on social media. This is very difficult work. And again, for those people who have gone through the most harrowing of experiences in their lives of loss and disillusionment, they're going to be the ones to understand what this feels like, okay? When you do understand your true value, then you start taking steps. Then you actually start taking concerted action. Then you start communicating to the biosphere who you are, and it will respond. It has no choice but to do that. So I think that's really important to understand, and how what you may be seeing, what you may be paying attention to. We're going to have our third quarter moon tomorrow, right? That's going to be in Leo, and challenge us, right? A crisis in consciousness. We may feel disillusioned. We may feel disempowered. We may feel like, I don't have any of my true value. I've given it up. There's some beautiful guidance around this right now. So, but just know that this is like kind of at the top of our awareness. And in fact, with the third quarter moon on the 16th, it's not tomorrow, I'm sorry, Wednesday the 16th, this is going to be a big part of what we are conscious of. And this is where this crisis point really comes to, okay? So, of course, we have our good friend, the Princess of Wands, right? Our Carmen, our beautiful Venus in the fire signs. We have Vesta or Hestia there on the hearth. She's dancing in the flames. Now, this is endless, powerful energy, right? This is when the flame of of divinity, right? The spark. This is where the Lilith energy makes a lot of sense. When you allow the void within you, you're not trying to fill it with your own ego. You are allowing it to be. And this is where this endless, powerful energy can really inhabit your life. It's a hot and explosive passion, right? And joy of life, enthusiasm, courage, beauty. But the downside, or the thing to watch out, is in this process, you burn down the object of your desire and you forget all about it as you move on, right? It is what it is. So just be aware of that, and be aware that this is where we're going. And I think Venus coming into Sag is going to be a big part of this. And then when Venus and Mercury are conjunct in Sagittarius, it's going to be very easy to express this alchemical fire that is really, it's like magma under the surface. It's going to be really accessible and very expressible in many ways, something that we are going to be feeling. And we will probably feel a lot of this Princess of Wands. And I'm not suggesting this is a bad thing at all, but we have to be very mindful about what container we are in fact what nest we are feathering. Because if we are in fact we're basically building our next prison, because we are more focused on how we're disempowered rather than actually getting into that witness stage and really understanding ourselves, then we may find ourselves being very destructive. It can happen. It could definitely happen. So I do feel like that there's so much positive, optimistic, Sagittarius, it's just so much optimism, right? But we want to make sure that it's coming from within us and not us responding to what is necessarily being presented to us in order to harness this energy for, again, someone else's agenda. This Six of Forces reversed, really indicative of that. So that's something that I think we all should keep in mind, okay? So, caught in the ruins, right? Number 16, our tower moment. We may even think that this also, besides building another prison for ourselves, that's definitely a possibility. The other thing that is pretty classic with the tower, right, is 16 is the tower as well, is that we may be building something and we may have it be destroyed. Right? We may have that little nest just get, blasted out of the tree because that entire tree is getting struck by lightning. That very well could happen as well. it's important to recognize that as well, and see this whole dynamic here of caught in the ruins as a gift, right? A dark and difficult situation that seems to have us trapped, right? It's either a hurtful or empty relationship, a job that we're really unhappy with, an addiction. Oh boy, these are big ones. Addiction. And addiction spans so many different behaviors. It's important to realize that too. And sabotaging belief systems. Not even knowing that we are reinforcing our own prison through our own sabotaging belief systems. I'm not good enough. How could I ever know what's going on? I need somebody else to tell me what's happening. I can't even tell you how many times people have been like, well, I need to listen to this person so I know what's going on. It's like, what happens when the internet shuts down? How are you going to know what's going on? Well, you haven't really fine-tuned your own internal channel at all. The courage and strength required to change is within us, okay? And so it's important that we realize that, so we are changing our faulty beliefs. We are changing and getting rid of these sabotaging choices, and to, again, be easy on yourself, right? It's really easy to be judgmental on yourself and other people. And speaking as a very strong Sag person, this has been one of my biggest challenges, is to, temper that self-righteousness and focus on myself. And this was something that was way more of an issue when I was a social justice warrior and identified much more as a radical progressive. And you can see that is something that is influencing people's behaviors. And to find compassion, find a sense of understanding and forgiveness for people that are still caught in their own feedback loops right now. Not to say people can't, they will be responsible for their choices. We don't have to put that judgment up. And that's one of the things that I've noticed that is so hard for people to accept, right? They want to be judgmental because they think they're doing something well. Well, it's not our position to judge other people. It is God. It is divine source. It is the law of nature which will do that. It is our job to hold, people will be held accountable to the law of nature regardless of what we do. We have to be true to ourselves, and that's going to have a lot of impact about how we move through the world, right? Now, if we do nothing, right, we don't break the pattern, then we're just going to keep perpetuating our situation. And sometimes that's really hard to do when you like the pattern. When it's easy when you're like, this pattern of sabotaging belief systems, I don't want to do it anymore, right? It's easy when you realize, oh, I'm addicted to this, that, or the other. I'm going to break the pattern. It's a lot harder when that pattern is something of like, a false light, right? That pattern, when that pattern is something that you erroneously believe is actually helping you, is keeping you in a situation where you are just, unplugged from reality, that's a lot harder. That's a lot harder. And this is where I, this is where the diversion, at least for me, from that perspective of exiting the matrix. It's like we don't actually exit it while we're still here in physical form. But if you continue to perpetuate that perspective, that's a pattern you're not breaking. So, this is something that I think is a very useful tool. But doing nothing and staying in your comfortable rut or your karmic trench is going to keep you confined. And some people, they want to stay there. And that's something that people have to just figure out on their own, okay? So, and again, be easy on yourself. It's okay. We're all here learning how to do this, right? And many of us have been doing this for many lifetimes, right? And figuring it out a little piece every time. So, and we're here as starseeds, whatever that means to you, whether that means literal from another star system, whether you use that imagery as an esoteric perspective that is a resonance of your multidimensional self, whatever it means to you. We're here to break the pattern and to become awake within this system, because that's what it means to be awake in a third dimensional experience. And being in fifth density doesn't mean there's no physicality, right? That was one of the things that I remember Alex Collier had said that really I was like, yeah, right? You're not going to just go off into the ether. Fifth density is being awake in the matrix and then realizing it responds to you. So again, there's a lot of ways this can happen. And then, but one of the guidance points here with the weasel, right? Our good friend, the weasel, has such a bad reputation, is to be silent, pay attention. Simply observe with all of your senses and feelings about what's happening inside and all around you, right? You can't just like totally close yourself off. There's Lilith right there in Cancer, who's like, you know what? I'm just gonna, I don't care, right? I'm not even paying attention anymore, right? None of that matters. Sorry, you don't get away from it, right? You can allow what's going on out there to pass in front of your awareness like a 2D film strip, right? You can get that viewfinder, right? What is that called? Is that what it was called? You know what I'm talking about, the viewfinder, right? You can look at things like that, but be aware that you are not necessarily exiting it. And if you are not paying attention at all, then how are you going to master this transmutational experience that we're all in? This is really important, and I can't tell you how beneficial this perspective has been for me, even in just the last couple of weeks, like really just taking it to the next level of not getting caught up in when I feel good or when I feel bad, but seeing that is data. Feelings that are data, so that you are way more intentional about what you're doing and why you're doing it. So be silent, pay attention, simply observe, right? This is why meditation is so important. I can't express enough how important it is you have some practice of presence in the now moment, because otherwise you just get pulled in. You get pulled into whatever, right? But you can also get so pulled in that you are just in la la land. You are in that eighth sphere energy. And this is where the metaverse is going to, come in and give people an opportunity to not have to even be present in reality at all, right? Just go into the metaverse and you don't have to, care about what's happening. If you've seen the movie Ready Player One, that's a pretty good, I think it was a pretty good, rendition of all of that too. The Oasis, right? Very interesting, that movie. So in terms of feeling disempowered, like our life is turned upside down, that we're giving our power away. Again, the seagull is about the time for deep emotional healing. And you're not going to, it's important to express your emotions without indulging in them or creating drama. Now, a moon in Leo is emotional drama to the max, right? And drama is not a negative or positive. It just is. It's when we express the human experience, right? And so you can express your emotions without indulging them, right? The seagull doesn't live in the water. Or making some big thing out of it, or creating the drama. The drama is just an expression of our experience. The clues are below the surface. And there's lots of different ways that this can happen. And again, right, you go into dream time, right? You go into meditation or shamanic journeying. You just have, reflections back to you that trigger a certain type of emotion or response. And you're like, that's interesting. That happened and it made me act this. I acted out this way, or I felt this way. And I expressed myself this way. I think sometimes we get caught in this idea that just because we feel this way is the end all be all, and not just a feeling. So but this is where the clues are. This is where we learn who we are, really, and what's driving our reflection back to us. So the seagull is about the deep emotional healing by going into this space, not indulging it, going into it and be like, wow, when I'm triggered in this way and I have these feelings, let's see where they're actually coming from. And then this whole new world opens up to you and you're like, whoa, I had no idea that these shadows were still here, right? So many layers that I had no idea I still had are getting pulled away. Or just becoming, coming to my awareness, at least. And that's very difficult too. But this is just part of the South Node in Scorpio, right? To just shed it away and come into a sense of close to our subconscious and our unconscious, but not completely enveloped by it. So, and, the willow is such a great it's such a great symbol for this, right? Because it's this tree where it's near the water. The roots are strong and they're drawing the waters of our soul into our lived experience. The sun is shining. Everything that we need is surrounding us. There's another bird in the background, right? But there's a flexibility here with, moving through the winds. And this idea of the impact of the air, of the winds, is going to be a big part of this next new moon. And I'll go into it when I give that forecast. Because even the waves of the ocean are impacted by the movement of spirit, right? Of the air, of our own expression of spirit moving over the waves, and it gives them a white cap, doesn't it? Very interesting. So this willow is about staying strong, but also flexible. There's a strong foundation capable of standing up to anything, even going into our own pain and our own trauma, to look at it, to get the clues, right? To not back away when we feel this way, but to look at it from the perspective that source would stand in witness to us, right? There's a time of calm and power and a confidence here. And again, it allows us to take action that supports our growth, right? When we have this perspective. So I love the willow when it comes out. This is usually a pretty good indication that we have access to this, and to just kind of remind us, hey, we're strong, but we're flexible. We move with the breeze. It might be a storm that rages through. That's something to consider. And there is lots of storm energy with this kite. Okay. And that's actually what we're going to move into now as we move into a little bit of the astrology. So I am going to be posting. Here, I'll just share with you real quick. I'm going to be posting the third quarter Catalyst astrology report for Tier 2 subscribers. That is people who are subscribed to the Catalyst Classroom monthly subscription. This astrology report is available to all those who are part of that tier. And so I'm going to be putting that out by tomorrow, and we will go into way more detail about the astrology of the week and that crisis of consciousness with our third quarter Leo moon. So if you're interested in having access to this report, like I said, all of the links you need are in the description box below in order to access that. So let's look at the astrology coming into this week. So what I'm going to do here is get that all queued up for you guys. And then we are going to this kite. I've been really eyeing today and tomorrow's astrology really strongly because of this kite. It's really been standing out to me. I don't know if anybody else is necessarily talking about it. And for those of you who share with me other people's content, other astrologers, I do appreciate that you're reaching out and sharing. And it's not because I don't value other people's content. It's just for the sake of my channel being clear and uninfluenced at this point. I can't listen to other people doing astrology. It's just, I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the time. And it's not because I am like, no, they suck or whatever. It's really not like that. It's just that it's not part of my experience right now because I'm also doing that work. So sharing it with each other is great, right? Being like, oh, so-and-so, wow, they're saying the same thing that you are. This is a different take. I think it's great. I think it's great to have all of these different resonances and perspectives when it comes to this. But so I don't know if anybody else is talking about this particular kite or these transits at all, but this is something that really stuck out to me. So I'm going to check in with the stream real quick and make sure it's good. Oh, it says I have no data. Oh, no. Excellent connection. Okay. That really, I don't know how long that there has been no data, but just know that there is going to be the recording that will be uninterrupted. So hopefully that's something, yay, Mama Wolf Memories made it. Better late than never. Live vibes. I love it. It's good to see you. I was just saying that it said there was no data for a minute. I got dropped and then it came back. So I have no idea where it dropped, when it dropped, but just know again that the recording will be uninterrupted and available for everyone. So anyway, here is our astrology for today. So you can see this kite pretty clearly, I would imagine. You have Lilith, and the moon has just moved into Leo as of 10 a.m. Eastern time. You have Pallas Athena and Lilith pretty much conjunct within about, it looks like, a 1 degree. So Pallas Athena is also part of this kite, right? The goddess of strategy and wisdom, and conjunct with Lilith. So there is a strategy, right? And there is this sense of that kind of Libra energy with Pallas Athena, something that is more strategic, something that is more rational that comes in, and the wisdom as well that comes into the picture. So it's not, there's something here that allows us to bring this perspective into what otherwise is a very raw, very primal protective mechanism that Lilith can often represent. And it's not to say that we shouldn't find that place within us that is able to like stand in the face of this massive upheaval, because that's what Pluto and Capricorn is representing, is this massive upheaval. And it's really testing our ability to find perseverance when all of the pathways are being destroyed, right? How do we get to the top of the mountain when the pathway that has been there for generations gets washed away in a mudslide, right? Or a mud flood. You could even think about it that way too. Because it's the nature of things in materiality. So how do we continue to persevere? How do we get to the top of the mountain, so to speak, when it is, when all pathways are destroyed because of some sort of storm raging through the canyon? There is something to be said and a strategy for being able to face this in a way where we are not ourselves getting destroyed, but also accepting that the things that we have built up around us to give us security materially, right? You may have all the leaves getting blown off the tree because the wind that comes through is so strong, and there may be branches that get broken off. There may be real destruction, but it's in facing this that a true catharsis really can happen. So again, the spine of the kite is what gives it structure. Okay, so this is happening today. We also see that the rest of the kite, which is a water trine, a grand water trine, is with Scorpio and Pisces. So Neptune and Jupiter are still retrograde right now. Jupiter is going to station direct right at the new moon on the 23rd, okay? And it's coming into a position right now, as of today, where it is going to station direct. And it's this idea here that light moves through a prism, and then you're able to see the full spectrum of the visible light spectrum, right? All of the colors of the rainbow represent the different frequencies of visible light that we actually have access to. And we don't see that when it's just unpolarized light, coming from the sun, coming from wherever. When it goes through that prism, right, which is a substance that refracts light, it differentiates something that has gotten to a point where we realize the unity of something, but it never stays in full unity when we are in materiality. It differentiates into all of the different iterations that it can be. And you can think of people as these different colors of the spectrum. Everybody is resonating at a different frequency in relation to the substance that's reflecting that light. That's how we get the color we see. So certain substances, based on the atomic structure, this is basic kind of light chemistry and light physics, as we understand it now. Doesn't mean it's not going to change entirely as we continue to understand our reality. The idea here is that based on the atomic structure of substances, it will reflect a certain bandwidth or frequency of light, and that's how we get color. It's the same thing, right? Our own density is going to reflect out a certain bandwidth or frequency of light. And Jupiter stationing direct at this point is to me, it's showing that there will be this differentiation that's going to then expand, but still in its retrograde right now, as Venus is about to come into a trine with it. And even Mercury, I think, is going to be in a trine with it while it's still retrograde. It's still this contracted point within all of us that we are the prism, right? And it's through love and the principle, and love as a principle of redemption, right? That's actually the Sabian symbol of 28 to 29 degrees Scorpio, is love being the principle of redemption. That, we right the wrongs in society based on this mutual cooperation and communion with each other. And that becomes the catalyzing power of Sagittarius, right? Where we actually alchemize, where we transform. If we fall back into the feedback loop of just, Gemini, for instance, then we never actually transform. We never actually catalyze this reaction, and we don't have the fire at the base of society to really get anything done, right? So there's something here about realizing and the meaning of it, of differentiation, and how it doesn't make it any less light. It just means that it's at a different wavelength based on the substance that is reflecting it back. And I think if we can keep this in mind, in terms of a big picture, right? Jupiter, the understanding, where our fortune and our bounty really can come from. This, I think, is going to make a big difference. And of course, the sun in a trine to Neptune today, Neptune retrograde, is also that ability to take that real animalistic type of raw energy of Scorpio and transubstantiate it into something that is ethereal and potent, right? Something that is potent and really is about transmuting generative power into something more ethereal. And this is where the capacity of our imagination can mold and remold everyday reality, right? This is exactly the type of transit that we can actually realize here, that we, from our own heart space, right? The sun representing the resonance of our heart, our voice, our own creative potential. It's from here that reality molds to that. Right? And again, the poetry of our soul, it mirrors our ongoing expression, achievement, whatever. And so the negative part about this is that if we're undisciplined, and especially with Neptune and Pisces involved, if we are just like caught up in the escapism of it all, it's going to completely distort this, and we're going to find ourselves getting that energy. Yes, it will be transubstantiated, but it won't be for us. It won't be the result of our own imagination, our own soul. It'll be something that is taken and used to substantiate something that is unconscious. And this is when I talk about undisciplined escapism. And many people are still caught in this undisciplined escapism through Neptune and Pisces. And I assure you, when it stations direct, the fog's going to roll in, and it's going to be so much more difficult to really have a clear connection to that imaginative, intuitive place without the distortion. And so this trine is really kind of that last moment where we get to really use our own imagination. And that does mean we have to take concerted action in our own behalf, right? It's not just like make your vision board and then expect something amazing to happen. You actually have to take steps. But this trine is like, oh, I see how my resonance fits in to the larger process here. And it's a really, it's a beautiful transit, and to have it part of this kite is really important. And I just want to draw your attention to it, because it's just, we are in like quite the window right now. And of course the moon is in Leo. So like I said, the drama, the emotional drama can either be enthusiastic and passionate and courageous, or it can be, drama, right? And you could find yourself really feeling like your expression of yourself is the only thing that matters. And that's the downside of Leo, is that you become the center of you become the center of your universe, thinking that you are the center of everyone's universe. And, Saturn in Aquarius is definitely going to put its foot down here. But for those of us who have maintained this process, Saturn at 20 degrees Aquarius now is very favorable for basically getting a deep spiritual blessing, right? A gift for knowing when to act. This is conviction, spiritual conviction, and a facility in so many ways for ordering all of our personal desires into a cosmic framework. So the downside of this particular position of Saturn is sanctimonious self-deception. And you see now how with this kite and this trine with the Sun and Neptune, it's a real risk, right? It's a real risk for not only getting pulled into substantiating something unconscious because people haven't really done their work, but also the sanctimonious self-deception. Wow. It's going to become very clear, I think, and obvious to many of us. And, the kite is the where we soar above, all of it. And without the tension at the spine of it, right, there is no kite. And so again, it's in the fulcrum of this that we can find our balance. We're not trying to go to one side or the other so much as accept the tension as what is allowing this kite to even exist and to soar above and to have this perspective, right? And have that observer position. Let's see what's going on tomorrow. I want to look at, here, let's do this. I would love, feedback from you guys too, if you feel so inclined to offer any in terms of what's going on for you. If you're really feeling this, if you are confused, right? If you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, or if you're like, yes, this makes a lot of sense to me, because it's really when we're sharing our experiences that we can really learn the most. I mean, as opposed to just, being, listening to other people. Of course, you're listening to me now, but I'm really just trying to offer tools in order to come to these conclusions within your own experience, as opposed to dictating what is or what isn't happening. So here is our chart for tomorrow. And you can see that the kite is still pretty much here. And there is a T-square with the moon and her own nodes at 13 to 14 degrees of Leo. And, T-square is, yes, there's a square in terms of how we are feeling now, how we're adapting to the world around us and that soul journey. But it's in that tension again that we can see kind of like a point to find the balance in a place that normally has us being pulled seemingly in different directions, or the tension in terms of what's being released with the South Node and where we're heading towards with the North Node. And, it's the soul seeks the ability to express itself through our personality, right? When we can see that it is not us and our ego that's being expressed, but utilizing the channel of Leo and our heart to allow our souls and our divinity to be expressed, I think that this is going to be the best way to kind of handle this T-square with the moon in Leo. It's also going to be in a trine right before that to Chiron at 12 to 13 degrees Aries, which is still sitting at this degree of frustration. Again, that adolescent frustration, wanting to change the status quo of something immediately without even coming out of our own selfhood, right? We haven't even offered ourselves into the environment around us, but we want to, blow it all up and change it. There is a need here to be kind of like the retired sea captain, rocking back and forth on the the porch and be like, I remember that, right? And not just I remember how the good things or the bad, remembering it all and not being pulled back into the drama of it because there's this sense that we've already transcended it or we've retired ourselves emotionally from it. And I think that, again, this is going to really be a healing moment with that trine over to Chiron. Or it's going to reinforce some level of apathy and, lack of involvement as well. But I see it as an opportunity to really heal that tendency to be triggered into, basically trying to change something through violence, basically, through some sort of, violent protest, trying to, let a bomb off, right? And I'm not saying that's going to be necessarily, it could absolutely be something that is, happens out there as well. So, but for the sake of our work here, just know that finding that space of rhythm within ourselves, within our own feels, and being able to feel the whole thing, right? Remember how great the joys and the accomplishments and the successes, and also feeling the times that we were unsuccessful, when our pride was injured, where we had grief and sorrow. It's important to feel into all of it, and I think that's going to really temper what otherwise will be a really strong trigger into acting out, right? And trying to violently change something when, it's just like being a teenager. It is very frustrating when you are just coming into that sense of who you are and not really feeling, you don't have any experience in life to do anything, to have any wisdom, yet you have this really raw sense of who you are and wanting to do something about it. And Chiron, of course, right, is where we can easily feel like a victim or feel like we have to be a savior for other people as a means to not feel our own suffering, basically. And so again, it's okay to give voice to the things that have been great and the things that haven't been great, and know that it's all part of the experience, okay? So that's coming into tomorrow, the 15th. So if you're interested in the whole week's astrology, you may want to consider being a monthly subscriber. It's $5 a month. There is so much that you get from being part of that subscription tier, not the least of which is our bi-weekly Starseed Fellowship Zoom call, or a Starship, which is going to get scheduled today. So if you are part of that and you want to be there live, just keep an eye on your email and subscribe star and on Telegram, because I'll put the survey out so that we can get it scheduled up for all of us. I think we all could stand to use a conversation. So thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate all of you so very much. Let me know if you need anything. If you're not on my email list, you may want to do so. That's when I put out first all of the new offerings, and when we go into new content, when I post stuff for the Catalyst Classroom, all of that stuff goes out to the email list first. You get about 3 every month, and you can do that by going to catalystenergies.net. So thanks, guys. I appreciate you all so very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for holding space. Thank you for your contributions, your participation, for the work that you are doing as an identified starseed on this journey, because it really does matter. And I'll see you on the next video, which will be next week on the 21st, I believe, right? Yes, the 21st, for our Starseed ministry. Until then, guys, take care of yourself, take care of each other the best you can, and I love you. It's gonna be good. We're coming out of it, but be very mindful of who you are and what's going on within you, so that you don't get pulled into someone else's agenda with your very vital and very just powerful energy, right? We are all co-creators of this experience. So that's something worth considering. Okay, guys, I'll talk to you later. Bye.